Most people will never build real wealth. Not because they didn't earn enough. Not because they were unlucky. Because they were doing the wrong things. Consistently. And here's what nobody tells you. The habits that actually build $500,000 look nothing like what you've been taught. What if the secret to $500,000 had nothing to do with hustle? What if the people quietly crossing that number were the most boring people in the room? The average person works 40 years and retires with less than $100,000. That's the average. But there's another group. Same income bracket, same city, same job title, same cost of living, different outcome. 500,000, 700,000, sometimes more. What separates them isn't a side hustle. It isn't crypto. It isn't luck. Here's a number that should bother you. 64% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency. 64%. But the same country has more millionaires than any nation on earth. So the money exists. The habits don't. And the real reason most people stay broke isn't income. It's a set of invisible decisions made on autopilot every single day. Decisions that either silently build $500,000 or silently drain away. And most people have no idea which side they're on. Stay with this, because what you're about to see will change how you think about money forever. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a breakdown of the specific, documented, often boring habits that separate the people who cross 500,000 from the people who don't. We're going deep on the math. We're going deep on the psychology. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what's been costing you. Here's what most people believe about building wealth. You need a high income. You need to find a right investment. You need to get lucky with something, a startup, a property, an inheritance. Sounds logical. But here's the trap. The United States Census Bureau tracks income and wealth separately. And what they consistently find is that income and net worth often have almost no correlation. Let that land. People earning $150,000 a year often have less saved than people earning $60,000. And this is where most people get stuck. They keep chasing more income, while the habits that actually build wealth stay invisible. Let's be honest. Most people treat a raise like a permission slip. Permission to spend more. New car, bigger apartment, better vacations. But really, it's just spending your future before it arrives. A study from Fidelity found that people who doubled their income over 10 years showed almost no improvement in their savings rate. The income went up. The spending went up. The gap between them stayed exactly the same. That's the trap. More money flowing in, more money flowing out. And the scoreboard at the end of the year reads 0. The truth is, building $500,000 has one engine. 1. The gap between what you earn and what you spend. That's it. Rich people don't protect their income. They protect their gap. And this is the part people overlook. It's not about how big your income is. It's about how consistently you defend the space between income and spending. Run this number with me. You earn $4,000 a month. You spend $3,500. Your gap is $500. That $500 invested every month at a 7% annual return becomes $305,000 in 30 years. Now, what if you protected that gap more aggressively? What if your gap became $1,000 a month? Same income, different spending discipline. That becomes $610,000 over 30 years. You didn't get a promotion. You didn't find a secret investment. You just protected the gap. Here's where it gets interesting. Most people think budgeting feels like restriction, and that feeling is exactly what stops them. Researchers at Princeton found that financial scarcity, even the perception of it, reduces effective cognitive bandwidth by the equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. You're not bad at money. You're exhausted by the anxiety money creates. The people who protect their gap don't feel restricted. They feel free, because every dollar in that gap is a future decision they already made. That's the mindset shift. Saving isn't sacrifice. Saving is pre-spending on the version of your life you actually want. You're probably wondering, okay, but how do I actually do this consistently? And this is where everything changes. The second unsexy habit is automation. Not because it's clever, because it removes the single biggest threat to your financial future. You. Your willpower is finite. Every financial decision you have to consciously make drains it. A study from Columbia University showed that people make worse financial decisions later in the day compared to earlier. Decision fatigue is real. And the people who rely on discipline instead of systems will always lose eventually. This is where most people fail. They think automation means setting up a savings account. That's not it. Real automation means your money moves before you see it. Payday happens. Your investment contribution leaves automatically. Your emergency fund gets topped up automatically. What's left is what you have to spend. You never decide to save. You decide how to spend what remains after saving. That mental reframe is worth six figures. Vanguard published a study on automated investors versus manual investors. Over a 10-year period, automated investors had 31% higher account balances. Not because of better investment choices, because they never missed a contribution. They never told themselves they'd start next month. Next month is where wealth goes to die. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. And if right now feels impossible, start with $50. Automate $50 a month. Then in 6 months, bump it to $100. You won't feel the difference in your lifestyle, but your future self will feel the compounding. Let's be clear. Nobody built $500,000 while bleeding cash through invisible holes. Subscriptions, convenience fees, impulse purchases that feel small because they're under $30. These aren't just annoying expenses. They are compounding losses. Here's a number that will stay with you. The average American spends $239 a month on subscription services. Most of them don't know it. They think it's around $80. They're off by $160 a month. That's $1,920 a year. Invested at 7% annual growth. Over 20 years, that's over $78,000. $78,000. Gone to services they barely use. This is the part people overlook. It's never one big decision that breaks your financial future. It's 100 small ones that nobody's auditing. What most people miss is this. Wealthy people don't spend less because they love deprivation. They spend intentionally. There's a difference. Every dollar has a reason, and the ones without a reason get cut. Once every 3 months, go through your bank statements line by line. Not to feel guilty, to get information. You can't fix what you can't see, and what you find in those statements will shock you. Now, here's the one that upsets people, because it sounds too simple. The fourth habit is investing in boring, diversified, low-cost index funds. Not crypto, not individual stocks, not the hot sector your coworker won't stop talking about. Index funds. That's it. Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion, has publicly said this. For most investors, a low-cost S&P 500 index fund will outperform almost everything else. Not sometimes, over the long run. A Spiva report from S&P Global tracks professional fund managers against index funds. Over a 15-year period, approximately 92% of active fund managers underperform the S&P 500 index. 92%. These are people paid millions to beat the market. They can't. And you think you're going to? Let's be honest. The real reason people avoid index funds isn't strategy. It's emotion. Boring doesn't feel like it's working. Watching a number slowly climb over years doesn't trigger the dopamine hit that a crypto surge does. But here's the breakthrough. That dopamine hit from volatile investing is the most expensive feeling you will ever buy. JP Morgan did a study showing that investors who check their portfolios the most frequently had significantly lower returns than those who check them the least. Watching makes you act. Acting makes you lose. The habit isn't just investing in index funds. The habit is investing and then leaving it alone. $10,000 invested in the S&P 500 in January of 2004. If you never touched it, by 2024, 20 years later, that $10,000 became approximately $72,000. Without doing anything, without watching, without trading, without stress. Boring built wealth. This one is different because it's not about a specific action. It's about the story you tell yourself about who you are. Research from James Clear, the author behind Atomic Habits, found that identity-based habits stick at a rate almost 3 times higher than outcome-based habits. In plain terms, the person who says, "I'm trying to save money," will fail. The person who says, "I am someone who builds wealth," will succeed, because their decisions filter through a different identity. Think about how differently these two people face the same moment. It's Friday night. Friends are suggesting a dinner that costs $80. Person 1 says, "I really should save money, but I'll treat myself just this once." Person 2 says, "I'm building towards something. Is this aligned with that?" Person 2 doesn't always say no, but person 2 has a framework, and that framework is compounding, not just financially. Every decision that aligns with your identity reinforces the identity. It becomes automatic, and this is where everything changes. Because now you're not fighting yourself every time money comes up. You're operating from a default setting that builds wealth on autopilot. Here's the actionable part. You don't declare the identity. You prove it to yourself through small actions. You invest $50. You track your spending for 1 week. You cancel one subscription you don't use. Each of those actions is a vote for a new identity. And once enough votes are cast, the identity feels real. Because it is. Now we're getting into the advanced layer. And this one separates the people who reach $200,000 from the ones who reach $500,000. Most people who get a raise do something predictable. They spend a raise. New car payment, nicer apartment, a few extra dinners out. Within 3 months, that raise has been fully absorbed into their lifestyle. And their savings rate is exactly the same as it was before. What most people miss is this. A raise is the most powerful financial event of your year because it's new money with no lifestyle attached to it yet. Here's what the people building serious wealth actually do. When the raise comes, they split it. 50% gets invested automatically. 50% gets absorbed into lifestyle. You still feel the raise, but half of it is working for your future before it can disappear. Run the math. You earn $60,000 a year. You get a 5% raise, $3,000 extra per year. You invest half, $1,500. That's $125 a month. Over 30 years at 7% returns. That single raise contributes over $147,000 from one raise. Applied once. Now imagine applying that protocol to every raise for the next 20 years. This is how people quietly build $500,000, while their colleagues wonder how they did it. You're probably wondering, what does an emergency fund have to do with $500,000? Everything. The truth is, most people don't blow up their wealth in one dramatic moment. They blow it up slowly. Car breaks down. No emergency fund. Goes on credit card. Credit card carries 18% interest. Takes 14 months to pay off. In the meantime, investments get paused because cash flow is tight. What was a $1,200 car repair? Ends up costing $3,000 in a year of compounding. That's not bad luck. That's bad architecture. An emergency fund isn't savings. It's a buffer between your wealth-building machine and your unpredictable life. When that buffer exists, emergencies stay emergencies. They don't become debt spirals. They don't interrupt your investment schedule. They don't cost you months of compounding. A Federal Reserve report found that people without emergency funds carry an average of 23% more high-interest debt than people who maintain a 3 to 6 month buffer. More debt, more interest. Less investing. The math is brutal. 3 months of expenses minimum. 6 months if your income is variable. Keep it in a high-yield savings account, not a checking account. Not invested in the market. Accessible, safe, boring. And here's the breakthrough. Once it's built, you stop fearing unexpected expenses. And when you stop fearing, you stop making fear-based financial decisions. That psychological shift is worth more than the fund itself. Let's run the full picture. You're 30 years old. You earn $55,000 a year. You apply every habit in this script. You protect your gap, saving and investing $500 a month. You automate every contribution. You cut $200 a month in invisible costs. You invest in a low-cost index fund, averaging 7% returns. You split every raise, investing half automatically. You maintain a 4-month emergency fund, so nothing ever derails you. At age 60, 30 years later, that gap alone is worth over $565,000. Before the raise protocol contributions, before any inheritance, before any business or side income. Just the habits. Applied consistently, quietly. Over time, nobody's going to make a movie about index funds. Nobody's going viral for automating their savings. Nobody's getting applause for auditing their subscriptions on a Sunday afternoon. But the people doing those things, they're building something the applause seekers will never have. Peace. Options. Time. Here's the thing about these habits. None of them require you to be exceptional. None of them require a genius IQ or a rich family or perfect timing. They just require consistency and the willingness to be boring on purpose. While everyone else is chasing the next thing, you're quietly stacking, month after month, year after year. And then one day, you look at your portfolio, and the number on the screen is one you once thought was impossible. That day is coming, but only if the habits start now. Not next month. Now. Because the most expensive habit of all is the habit of waiting.